introduce you a little bit to this group before you kick things off. For those of you who haven't met Katy before, one, she's a wonderful human, but two, she's the CEO of DSIL Global, Designing for Social Innovation and Leadership. She has been leading experiences with cohorts of entrepreneurs, organizational leaders from all around the world, helping them find their leadership voice, and helping them build design and social innovation into all of the work that they do. So I'm really excited for her to join us today to share a little bit about, what it looks like to be a leader and to have resilience in this changing world. It's probably more important than ever. It's always been important, but right now in the situation all of us are in, the global pandemic, becoming better leaders and being more resilient, having those skills to do that, we're so critical, and we're really excited to have her share the space here and share her experiences and insights on this topic. And she tells me it will be very interactive, so I hope you all enjoy. Over to you, Katy. Take it away.
Thanks. Steph, do you want to make me a host so I can just do some tricky little things on Zoom? Hey, y'all. Yeah, my name is Katy. We, like Steph said, work with kind of people all around the world, from startups in Cambodia to the Gates Foundation and their executive leadership team. And so we've been really lucky to make it over the 5-year mark, moving into our seventh year as a company, which has taken many different formations, which I think speaks to, speaks to the resilience of our company and the kind of struggles we went through. So I'm just going to share screen. And the first thing that we're going to do as a group is we're going to become present. And this might be hard for everyone who's entrepreneurs, because we just dive into stuff. We drive and do, and that's kind of the way we roll. And so one thing that we've noticed at DSIL big time is that becoming present is a big deal. So I'm going to ask you to do that with me for a minute. Wherever you are, just find a space where you can sit down and you can take a couple of deep breaths. And you can just let go of the emails you're thinking about, the kids that are on your brain, all the stuff going on. And just for 2 minutes, you can take some deep breaths and become present with the people here on this call. Because we're not just going to talk about resilient leadership, we're going to practice resiliency. So yeah, go ahead and just get relaxed and just really drop into whatever makes you feel present with the people around you. If that's deep breaths or paying attention to your thoughts and then putting them in a bubble and having them drift away, that works. Make sure it's coming from the bottom of your belly if you're breathing in your nose, out your mouth. A couple more times. Through your nose. Out of your mouth. Cool. And come on back to me when you're ready. So before every single meeting that we have at DSIL, we do that. We do that with clients. We do that with our humans. And the reason why is we feel like it's simply a short but simple way, significant way to show respect to yourself and honor kind of where you are at and the hundreds of things we are within a day. And equally, it gives your team a break to get there with you and to, again, let down those emails. If you're not present during a meeting, I would argue with you that you're not doing much in that meeting. If you're in a meeting about strategy, but you keep thinking about the project you just finished, I think it's really important that we start to ground ourselves in what we're doing and with the people that we're doing it with, and that has a lot to do with resiliency. So to tell you a little bit more, you'll see I'll keep my slides like this. I'm dyslexic, so this just helps me know what's coming next and makes this a super coherent workshop for everyone. So it shouldn't be on full screen on purpose, but this is a lot of the thinking that we've been doing recently. If you think about systems leadership, this is the way that we were all taught in many ways, right? We were taught to be leaders that were gardeners, and we, no matter what, we make pristine gardens, and we hold up the roses, and even if they're falling, we try to make things look as perfect as possible. And I know as an entrepreneur, this is definitely something that I have done again and again with my own startup. And it's also something that I've done as a leader, because it's easier to keep kind of the hard stuff going on with me inside. And I had a lot of worries about sharing that stuff forward with my team, that they would collapse, et cetera, et cetera. So the top works on a systems level. This is kind of what systems try to do. They try to make things look pristine and generic. But I think all of us would know the power of what about living, working, and being a leader in the bottom garden. And that means that you're not overlooking a garden. You're actually a part of a garden. You're not more important than any piece of a garden. You're simply in the garden with all kinds of weather and all kinds of people, and there's bees and rain and shade and shitty days and frustration. And there's also a lot of great stuff too, blooming and composting and cross-pollinating. And I think this is where our world is at, both as systems leaders and as systems are at, and as leaders. And so I think you build resiliency by learning how to drop from the top picture to the bottom picture. And when you can learn how to let go of that control and become a part of a garden instead of a gardener controlling everything, you will get there. It is not as easy as those illustrations suggest. However, we have gotten a lot of traction by using simplicity and clarity around these illustrations. So it boils down to one thing. When we try to control, either inside of us, in our teams, or in our systems, we cause separation. When we let go and choose trust, we increase connection in ourselves, in our teams, in our systems. And so I would say, hello, welcome to October 2020. We are already thriving. You are already resilient, and it's the power systems that are not. And so I think it's extremely important right now to talk about how we can dismantle that need to control inside of us, that need to succeed inside of us as best we can. So there's just a couple things I want to say to you. Every single entrepreneur I've ever met has like days where they feel like they're an imposter, or they don't belong here. Or I think this is a big part of being able to drop into the garden, is just to accept yourself as the many things that you are. But also it takes a fair amount of resilience to allow yourself to be both awful and amazing. There are parts of me that are pretty awful, and there are parts of me that are pretty amazing, and there's everything in between. But I just want you to know that as we move forward, because this is interactive, and I'm asking you to push yourself in these conversations, none of you are fake strong. All of you have been trying for a very long time. You've all been doing amazing work for a very long time. You've made it this far in your life. None of you are fake trying. You've all made it to this event, but beyond that, you've made it in many other ways. None of you are fake complex, and none of you are fake human. And allowing this, again, in self, teams, and systems is really the way to dismantle. So this picture comes from something me and Steph did around a circular jam, circular design jam. And so today I'd like you to stay in your growth zone. Here's the way that you build resilience. You stay in your growth zone, and you get through challenges together. And you don't do that alone as a leader overlooking a garden, holding up roses. You do that with everyone around you. And that's where it comes from. So a little quick story about me. I grew up in the foster care system. I lived in 15 homes. I, like the whole jam, grew up in the States. Spent a lot of time in jail. Like the list goes on and on. That's where I built my resiliency. And I just keep building it every time I choose to move through a challenge instead of ignore that a challenge isn't there. Now, when I was a younger kid, of course, like I didn't have an option. I had to move through the system the way that it made me move through it. And unfortunately, it was a violent one. However, language and not including people, not communicating well can also take on different shapes and forms of violence. So for yourself as a leader, when you interact with your teams, and most importantly, when you interact with yourself, when you watch the way you're talking to yourself, you want to make sure you're in your stretch zone, but you're not replicating things that are harmful to you, because they will be harmful to others around you. I'll just show you, this is a little illustration we do. It's the mycelium. Am I saying it right? Yeah, my team would know better, but we start we start with ourselves. Inside is us and the integrity and resiliency that we build. And by the way, it is built for sure. That has an impact on the surrounding conditions, and then that has an impact on the larger system. And so whenever I give keynotes, I say things like, we are the system. You don't get to blame the system. You don't get to blame your team. You don't get to blame your boss anymore. When we start to understand that we're interconnected, this is when we make changes. This is tied to some, for those of you that are like, who said that? Where's the research studies? There's a whole bunch of them out of Harvard. And there's 5 levels of leadership. 15% of us will get to the 3rd level. And that 3rd level really understands interdependency, interconnectedness, the ability to hold multiple truths at one time. So complete contradictions in the same room, things like that. And I think, again, more than ever, this is really important. But today, since we're talking about leadership and not culture and not systems change, we're going to stick in this middle piece. And we're going to start with each other, because that's the way it goes. So after we become present and check in with ourselves, we always start with our teams. So what I'm going to do is ask you to look at these shapes, and you can see that my design mind coming out here, but I want you to look at the shapes, and I want you to think about how do you currently deal with uncertainty or ambiguity when you're around it? So which shape best describes how you deal with certainty or ambiguity? And I'm going to give us a minute to think about our answer, so we can come to one that we want to share, that is authentic. And I also think just leaving a minute in between asking questions dismantles power in the room. It allows introverts and extroverts to come to an answer that they feel good about. So I'll give that time now. How do you deal with uncertainty and ambiguity when it's around you? And you're going to go into breakout rooms. This is way less about talking about the picture. If you're doing that, you're avoiding it. Get to the why. The person that you're talking to wants to know why. So I'm going to stop the share and just put us in breakout rooms. Steph, I don't have it. Can you put? Yeah. Can you put people in twos and give 3 minutes total?
Sure.
Cool. So you're going to start sharing the space with the other, or you're going to share the space with the other person. You have 3 minutes each. You want to go directly to the why you deal with certainty and ambiguity about this. And I want you to get real honest with yourself. How are you doing with it? And part of being in a live garden, instead of that one that was more controlled, is sharing space and learning how to do that. So equality doesn't always mean sameness. But you will also see a timer, so you got a little bit of a helper going. Cool, we'll see you back here in 3 minutes, and when you see the countdown button, do not come back. Wait till the countdown kicks you back into the room, because time with your team, having conversations, time with yourself, it's sacred, it's really precious, especially now. Cool, we'll see you in about 3 minutes. Okay, so hopefully you're with some new people this time. Steph, you do not have to join if you don't want to, but you're more than welcome to. And we are answering the question, tell the story of a time when you overcame something super hard, not work related. What was created within you afterwards and why? We'll see you back here in about 5 minutes. Share the space in our garden and I'll see you soon.
We just have a couple of minutes, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just moving one. Dr. Zafar. Hey everyone, welcome back. Okay, so now we're going to use something. I'm all about giving people agency and choice and voice, especially on Zoom. And as a facilitator, I've maybe worked in like 30 countries and a designer. I feel like we can do as much on Zoom as we can in person, which might feel shocking to you, but I've been loving it, especially as a designer. So I'm going to do something called Chat Swarm. And in the chat box, I want you to answer the question, what to the end of that, after sharing your story, about what something you went through that was tough, what was created in you afterwards and why. So maybe just put it in one sentence and everyone can just type that. What was gifted to you, what was built, what was created in you because you went through that. And you can let them pop in whenever you're ready. Just go ahead and let them waterfall into the chat. And then you can go ahead and read what your colleagues are writing by scrolling up and down. Cool, I'm seeing more empathy, determined not to use labels, knowledge and confidence, courage. I realized I was much stronger than I thought. Yeah, perfect. Cool. So you are all starting to understand that you already are resilient. And when we meet teams around the world, again, from small startups in Cambodia to the Gates Foundation and, in DC, same thing. We notice that we already are thriving. We already are resilient. But we are so measured by our resume or by the goals we're working towards. We're not paying attention to how much resilience we already have. So I would highly recommend that you dismantle your resume and you start to bring in all the shit you've gone through in your life and all the challenges that you've overcome and start to pull that into team conversations and also help your team pull that in because you'll understand that they have a lot more to offer than why you might have hired them. No matter which way you hire them, if you hire people over skill or skill over people, either way, we just have a lot more capacity and potential that we're not tapping into. This is one reason why we do equity-based design, not just because it's nice, but because it untaps a lot of potential. Thomas, is your hand up?
Yeah, it is. I've got a question about what you just said about disclosing your challenges. I had an advisor. I was in a pre-grad school scholar program for psychology, and he said that I shouldn't mention my story because it had to do with head trauma. going into psychology, and I'm just wondering, how detailed should you get in your I guess story disclosure?
We are going to talk about this in 1 second, but I would say your professor is this gardener on top. He's trying to maintain this kind of pristine garden where we don't share everything. We only share the things that make us look great or make our systems look great. Although we know that actually kills it's not what's alive, it's not what's real, and so then it's dead. I would say he did that. I do think there's a place for discernment. I think great leaders have very good discernment, and we'll talk about that on 2 levels coming up next. So I really appreciate you bringing that to the table, because we'll use that as our little mini case study, Thomas. So thank you. Every part of a thriving garden that, again, is messy. If you have a messy team, that means you're doing a good job. There still needs to be composting within us as leaders, if that's how we are naming ourselves. And so I'd love to just do a quick activity with us about what do you need to compost in order to be a part of a garden and not controlling it. And so the first thing I'm going to have you do is something called re-narrating roles. So for the next minute, I want you to write down on a piece of paper 10 roles that you play in your life that are quite significant. So those roles could be, like, for me, I'm creative, I'm a musician, I'm a CEO, I'm a pretty shitty sister. Like, there's like a couple of things, right? There's like, so think of 10. I'm very logical. So you can think of the 10 that you feel like best describe who you are. And if you come up with 20, great. But you have about a minute to come up with those roles that first come to your heart or to your head that you play most often in your life, or you participate in most often in your life. Be as creative as you want with these, of course. Break the rules whenever possible. And think about right now, not before, so not 10 years ago or last year, but really right now in this living COVID world we're in. If you're thinking about it too much, try to drop into your heart. If it's getting too emotional, maybe drop back, go up to your head. Think about it a little bit more. Start to use those different kinds of brains. And when you feel like you have more than 5, go ahead and give me a reaction button. Should be on your bottom screen. I'm clapping. I'm currently clapping. Nice. Okay. So now what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to cross out the ones that do not give you life, that do not make you feel alive and excited and on fire, that do not make you feel like you're really contributing in ways that give you life. Without excuses, I know what we can do. We can be like, yeah, but it's necessary, da da da. Like, no excuses here. Just like cross out the ones that don't give you life.
Hey, sorry, could you repeat the question?
Hello? Did I miss someone?
Yeah, could you repeat the question again? Sorry, I think I
Sure,
must
just
understand.
cross out the ones that you wrote down that don't give you life, that drain energy from you, that make you feel dead. These are words that we can, that you dread, those kind of things. I think you might be too cognitive about that. Maybe drop into your heart. If you think about that role, Dr. Zafar, does it give you life? Does it make you happy? Does it make you want to do it? Is it something that makes you excited, vibrant? Yeah. Okay, so you're already starting to see if we're going to become systems changers, and especially resilient leaders, we have to start asking ourselves some hard questions. And some of those hard questions, whoa, computer fail. There we go. Some of those hard questions are part of resiliency building. So I am a very curious person, and ever since I aged out of care and as a CEO, I'm always asking myself, like, what do I need to compost or maybe creatively deconstruct in myself, so that my garden, my team, our work can be thriving alongside others. And so this hopefully workshop will give you things to think about for a really long time. And something else I want you to think about is, maybe it's time to start composting the idea that change starts by doing and driving things outside of us, and also that it's only from a select few of us. So the name of our company is Designing for Social Innovation and Leadership. Recently just changed to Systems Innovation and Leadership, since we do so much systems work. But what we've noticed is that, so we knew that we couldn't take leadership out of it because it has so much power inside of the systems that we work in. However, where is this intergenerational, cross-sector, cross-country, different knowledges, different lived experiences? Like, through design, we've understood that it's vital to have everyone at this table sharing experiences and contributing to the garden. And so when we think about that, it helped me stop controlling the garden and step into it. And that's just a provocation for you. But to be able to do that, we really need to think about radical responsibility. We see a big connection between teams that are highly generative, that work really well. We see a big connection between becoming leaders who are radically responsible, always willing to take their 50%, and a team that can radically collaborate and allow in things like this. You know, even caring about what children say, marginalized communities, and also people that have power, all of them equal at the table. And so, speaking of radical responsibility, let's do another radically responsible activity. And that's this one. So I want you to think about, the way that you're currently leading, where are you at in this eco cycle? Do you feel like your leadership style is in summertime? Is it in autumn? Is it in spring? Is it in winter? And any way you heard that question is perfect.
And right now, Katy, like where we are right now?
Always right now. Yeah, let's not where you want to be, not where you have been. Let's be honest, where are you at right now? And I'm just going to give you a minute to think about that and take some notes.
Could you go through the weather, or I guess the characteristics of each part of the seasons?
However you would explain the why is really important. So however you see summer, however you see autumn, however you see spring. So go ahead and think about your leadership style and write down why you would think that. Yeah, good question, Steph. So that's part of the introspection work, right? Rather than me defining it for us.
Great, thanks. Dr. Zafar was asking in the chat, so just wanted to make sure.
Thanks, Dr. Zafar. I can't see the chat. Teamwork, we're such a live garden. So this is something else you can do in terms of introspection around building your own resiliency, getting really honest with, like, where am I at? You know, why am I there? Who do I need to support me? How can I invite my team into sharing challenges with me in whatever kind of part of the cycle you're in? You'll notice that it's interconnected, and it's all incredibly important. And for some reason, maybe we all want to be in summertime all the time, or we all want to be in spring all the time. But actually, things that are working really well go through cycles. And there's a reason why we have compost, and there's a reason why, you know, there's different weather. And so think about that and share it forward with your team, or do this with your team. And that's a good way to build together. Self-discovery in groups is an amazing way to build resiliency. The last thing I want to talk about is composting the way we were taught to understand and make sense of things. So there's 4 ways of knowing. As you could imagine, the cognitive way is the way that most of us were taught. If we think with our brains hard enough and we drive towards the goal, we'll get there. And for so many reasons, somatic, knowing with your body, intuitive, usually comes from, it's something that you just know. It comes from certain places, from a lot of cultures, ancestral lines, all kinds of things. And emotionality has definitely been pushed down in the Western world. So I want you to think about, what do you need to compost here? Great leaders would use all 4 of these. Resilient leaders would be able to look at these different perspectives and think about where am I thinking from, and what makes the most sense. And usually if more than a few of them are in sync, I would move in that general direction all the time. So just to come back to, who was that? Nick? Oh, no, it was Thomas. Yeah, I would say that probably your professor was really cognitive about that. And he probably he needed to compost his relationship with emotionality and sharing a lot of things forward. And so if you're only thinking with one of these things, you are limiting your way to lead. If you're noticing you're not thinking with one of them, maybe that's a good one to pay attention to and get into a certain practice, or get a certain coach that can help you expand, so that your garden can expand. And by garden, again, I mean ourselves, our teams, and our systems. Yeah, and I think about this question a lot. What would be possible for our future world if we were invited to know things beyond using our brains? So if we go back to this picture, oh my God, what if we weren't just building things together? What if we were also inviting in different ways of knowing, and all of them to be equally important? There's some pretty good science behind this as well, in terms of how alchemist leaders, so the highest level of leaders, make decisions. So if you want that kind of research, let me know. This tends to be something that we kind of know is true anyway. And we have some cool activities that we love doing that. And Thomas, this one is definitely for you, in the story about your professor. It's time to compost the idea that people are hard to trust and all people need to earn it. This comes from emergent strategy and emergent facilitation practices. I think Adrienne Marie Brown is doing some really amazing work at this right now. If you want to build resiliency in yourself or in your teams, move at the speed of trust, because connection is more important than the mass. And Roxy, you talked about this before. So our team, we wouldn't move on with something unless we felt like, we were moving at the speed of trust. And we ask, do we feel like there's enough trust built here for us to keep moving forward? And our goal this entire last year at DSIL was to build trust with one another. And that's our primary goal. We didn't do any financial goals, nothing else. We've been around 7 years, and we're more abundant than ever. So that's something to think about. Something else Adrienne Marie Brown says is trust people. When you trust them, they become trustworthy. So if you share your story with others, you will build trust with them. Use discernment. If you know somebody's really, he's a big jerk, don't. But most people, I'd say 99% of people I've ever met in the world, which has been thousands in lots of countries at this point, if you trust them, they are trustworthy. As a leader, I wonder, do you trust yourself? And if you can't trust yourself, how do you expect to trust the system? How do you expect to trust your team? And so this goes back to your ways of knowing. This goes back to you understanding what roles you're playing in your life that aren't serving you. All of this is resiliency building work. Just a couple more things. Resiliency building work can really can be tough because we get scared and we go back to that separation. And if people know this about me, then they'll think I'm crazy and complex and not human, but that's actually not true. You build trust. So when you get hard on yourself, stop doing that. Stop being the gardener that's holding up a rose that's dying. Instead, just be really gentle, and that gentle curiosity can bring you back. We work in these 3 different areas. We worked in systems innovation leadership. We work in equity-based design and emergent strategy. And we think that probably a better future and a better garden lies in the center of these things. We've been working on it for a long time. We also certify in these things. We have our executive course going right now. So if you ever want to dive really deep and also really broadly in these 3 sectors, really deep personally and really broadly in these 3 different categories, we have a pretty fun and engaging program that's challenging and equally supportive. And it doesn't always feel like this. So for those of you that are like, how do I build resilience? Let's do a 1-day workshop. It's not this. It's a journey. It's every time you come, you meet a challenge, you really meet it, and you invite others into helping you solve it. And again, as a foster kid, I was really good doing that when I was 10. And I'm still pretty good doing that as I get older. So this is me, and you can get a hold of us and hear a whole bunch of other stories about building resiliency from self to systems. We can do it all at one time at dsilglobal.com. And I wish you all the best. I just want to say, as an entrepreneur, please take care of yourself, humans. You don't have to just do. And, there's always going to be train wrecks. No worries. Just remember that you are also important. So thanks for your time, Steph. Thanks for inviting me into this. And thanks for letting me go a little bit over. I'm sending you all the aroha, which means love, from New Zealand. And I hope to hear from you soon if you need anything.